The bright Georgia sun was shining through the windows of the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center as Keisha Thompson hurried inside, carrying a stack of donation forms. At 32, she was one of the most dedicated social workers in Atlanta, known for her warm smile and caring heart. That spring afternoon in 2021 was supposed to be just another regular day at the fundraising event for disabled children, but fate had other plans. As Keisha organized the registration table, she noticed a man in a wheelchair skillfully maneuvering through the crowd. What caught her attention wasn't his disability, but rather the way he made the children around him laugh. His bright smile lit up the entire room, and his deep voice carried a warmth that made everyone feel comfortable. And then, the penguin said to the seal, "That's not my tuxedo," the man exclaimed, causing the group of children around him to burst into giggles. Keisha couldn't help but smile too. Later, during the event, one of her colleagues, Sarah, came over with the man in the wheelchair. "Keisha, I'd like you to meet Marcus Bennett. He's our new consultant for the center," Sarah said, grinning. "Marcus, this is Keisha, our star social worker." Marcus extended his hand, and when Keisha shook it, she felt a gentle warmth spread through her fingers. "Nice to meet you, Keisha. I've heard great things about your work with the children here," he said, his brown eyes twinkling. Over the next few hours, Keisha found herself constantly glancing in Marcus's direction. She noticed how he helped the children with their computer activities, showing incredible patience and understanding. His disability seemed to fade into the background as his personality shone through. During the lunch break, Marcus wheeled over to her table. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, holding his sandwich. Keisha welcomed him with a smile, and soon they were deep in conversation. She learned that Marcus had been in a car accident 8 years ago that left him paralyzed from the waist down, but he spoke about it with such openness and even humor that it put her completely at ease. When Keisha returned home that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. She called her best friend, Tanya, to tell her about the interesting man she'd met. But Tanya's response wasn't what she expected. "Girl, are you sure about this?" Tanya asked hesitantly. "Dating someone in a wheelchair, that's going to be really challenging. Have you thought about the future?" Keisha felt a surge of disappointment at her friend's reaction. "I'm not even dating him yet, Tanya. We just talked." The next day, Keisha's mother, Gloria, stopped by her apartment after hearing about Marcus from Tanya. "Baby, I'm just worried about you," Gloria said, sitting at the kitchen counter. "Being with someone disabled isn't easy. You need to think about what you're getting into." But Keisha remembered Marcus's laugh, his kindness with the children, and how he made her feel during their conversation. She thought about how his disability hadn't defined their interaction at all. 2 days later, Marcus called the center asking to speak with her. "I really enjoyed our talk the other day," he said. "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" Despite her family's concerns, Keisha said yes. They met at a small cafe near the center, and 3 hours passed like minutes. Marcus told her about his job as a consultant, his love for jazz music, and his dreams of starting a technology program for disabled youth. He asked about her family, her work, and her passion for helping others. When Marcus talked about his disability, he was straightforward and honest. "I won't pretend it's always easy," he said, stirring his coffee. "But it's part of who I am now, and I've learned to live a full life. I just need someone who can see beyond the wheelchair." Keisha looked at him and saw not a disabled man, but a strong, intelligent, and kind person who made her heart beat a little faster. "I'd like to be that someone," she said softly. As they left the cafe that afternoon, both of them knew this was just the beginning of something special. Keisha's phone buzzed with concerned messages from her family, but for the first time in her life, she decided to follow her heart instead of others' opinions. Little did Keisha know that this was the start of a journey that would change both their lives forever, proving that love doesn't see disabilities, only possibilities. Over the next few months, Keisha and Marcus's relationship grew stronger, though not without its challenges. Their first real test came during a family dinner at Keisha's parents' house. Gloria Thompson had insisted on hosting, saying she needed to see this man for herself. The evening started awkwardly when they realized the front steps didn't have a ramp. Marcus, however, handled it with grace. "Don't worry," he said with a smile, showing Keisha how to help him navigate the steps with his portable ramps that he always carried in his car. Inside, Keisha's father, James, watched with crossed arms as Marcus skillfully maneuvered his wheelchair through the living room. Her younger brother Michael kept staring at the wheelchair until their mother scolded him with a sharp look. "So, Marcus," Gloria began during dinner, her voice careful and measured, "what exactly are your intentions with our daughter?" Marcus set down his fork and looked directly at Gloria. "Mrs. Thompson, I care deeply for Keisha. I know you're concerned about my disability, but I want you to know that I'm financially independent, emotionally stable, and completely capable of being a good partner to your daughter." James leaned forward. "But how will you take care of her? What about children? Have you thought about these things?" Keisha felt her face grow hot with embarrassment, but before she could speak, Marcus responded calmly. "Sir, I may be in a wheelchair, but I can take care of your daughter. I have a successful career in it, my own home, and yes, I can have children. More importantly, Keisha and I take care of each other." The honesty and confidence in Marcus's voice made even James sit back, impressed despite himself. By the end of the evening, the family's attitude had shifted. They saw what Keisha saw, not a disabled man, but a strong, capable person who genuinely loved their daughter. As their relationship continued, Keisha learned to navigate the daily realities of dating someone with a disability. She discovered that Marcus had good days and bad days with his condition. On good days, they went to jazz concerts, movies, and restaurants. Marcus taught her how to play chess, and she introduced him to her favorite cooking shows. On bad days, when Marcus experienced pain or frustration, Keisha learned to be patient and understanding. She discovered that sometimes support meant just sitting quietly with him, and other times it meant making him laugh until he forgot his troubles. Their first big argument came 3 months into dating when Keisha tried to help Marcus into his car without asking. "I'm not helpless," he said firmly. "I need you to ask before helping me. I've been doing this for 8 years, Keisha. I know what I'm doing." That night, they had a long talk about independence, respect, and communication. Keisha realized that love meant finding the balance between caring for someone and allowing them their dignity and autonomy. The turning point in their relationship came during a rainy evening in downtown Atlanta. They were leaving a restaurant when they found themselves stuck in a downpour. Marcus's wheelchair was getting soaked, and Keisha was struggling with an umbrella. Instead of getting frustrated, they both started laughing. Marcus pulled Keisha onto his lap, and they made a mad dash to the car together, getting completely drenched but not caring at all. It was in that moment, as they sat in the car dripping wet and laughing, that Keisha knew she was truly in love. "You know what I love about you?" Marcus said that night, pushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "You don't see the chair first, you see me." Their friends and family began to notice the change in both of them. Keisha became more patient and understanding, while Marcus opened up more about his feelings and fears. Even Tanya, who had been skeptical at first, admitted she had never seen her friend happier. As their first year together drew to a close, they had learned to face challenges together. They had developed their own language of love, one that went beyond physical abilities and limitations. Their love story was teaching everyone around them that true connection wasn't about what a person could or couldn't do physically, but about how they touched your heart and enriched your life. What they didn't know was that their biggest challenge, and miracle, was still to come. 2 years into their relationship, Marcus began acting strangely. Keisha noticed he was taking more phone calls in private and seemed distracted during their dates. One evening, while they were watching TV at his apartment, she caught him quickly closing his laptop when she entered the room. "Is everything okay?" Keisha asked, trying to hide her worry. "You've been so secretive lately." Marcus smiled mysteriously. "Everything's perfect. Just working on a special project." He changed the subject quickly, but Keisha couldn't shake the feeling that something big was happening. What Keisha didn't know was that Marcus had been working with her family to plan the perfect proposal. He had spent weeks practicing with a jeweler to make sure he could open the ring box smoothly from his wheelchair. He wanted everything to be perfect. The plan came together during the annual Thompson family reunion at their grandmother's house in Savannah. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, and all of Keisha's relatives were there: aunts, uncles, cousins, and even her 90-year-old grandmother, Big Mama, who had finally warmed up to Marcus after seeing how happy he made her granddaughter. The backyard was decorated with twinkling lights and flowers, though Keisha thought it was just part of the regular family celebration. Marcus had asked her brother Michael to set up a camera, pretending it was for a family photo session. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Marcus asked for everyone's attention. He wheeled himself to the center of the yard, where Keisha stood chatting with her cousins. "Keisha Thompson," he began, his voice strong despite his nervousness. "2 years ago, I met a woman who saw past this wheelchair and into my heart." The family gathered around them, forming a circle. Big Mama dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, already knowing what was coming. "You've shown me that love doesn't have limitations," Marcus continued. "You've never seen my disability as a barrier, only as part of who I am. You've supported my dreams, shared my struggles, and brought more joy to my life than I ever thought possible." Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, revealing a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the evening light. "I may not be able to get down on one knee," he said with a gentle smile, "but I can promise you my whole heart, my complete devotion, and a lifetime of love. Keisha, will you marry me?" The silence that fell over the gathering was electric. Keisha stood there, tears streaming down her face, looking at the man who had changed her understanding of love. She saw not just the proposal, but their entire journey, the doubts they'd overcome, the love they built, and the future they could have together. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The family erupted in cheers as Keisha leaned down to kiss Marcus. Her father, James, who had been skeptical at first, was now wiping tears from his eyes. Gloria hugged them both, whispering, "Welcome to the family, son." Big Mama made her way through the crowd to them. She took both their hands in hers and said, "Love like this don't come around often. You two hold on to it tight." The celebration lasted late into the night. Marcus had arranged for Keisha's favorite food to be catered, and her cousin, a local DJ, played their favorite songs. They danced in their own way, Keisha sitting on Marcus's lap as he spun his wheelchair in smooth circles, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. Later that evening, as the family celebrated around them, Marcus pulled Keisha close and whispered, "I have one more surprise for you, but it'll have to wait until the wedding rehearsal." "Another surprise?" Keisha asked, intrigued. "What is it?" Marcus just smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say I've been working on something special. Something that will show you and everyone else that miracles really do happen." Keisha had no idea that the biggest surprise of her life was still to come, a surprise that would leave everyone speechless at their wedding rehearsal and prove that love truly knows no bounds. The months leading up to the wedding were filled with both excitement and mystery. Keisha threw herself into wedding planning, but she couldn't help noticing Marcus's increasingly packed schedule. He was attending what he called special therapy sessions 3 times a week, often returning home looking exhausted but oddly satisfied. "Are you sure everything's okay?" Keisha asked one evening after he canceled their dinner plans for another therapy appointment. "You seem to be pushing yourself really hard lately." Marcus squeezed her hand. "Trust me, beautiful. Everything is more than okay. These sessions are important for our future." His eyes held a secret that made her both curious and worried. The wedding preparations continued at full speed. They had chosen a beautiful church with wheelchair accessibility, and Marcus insisted on being involved in every detail. However, he was particularly interested in the layout of the church's main hall and kept having private conversations with the wedding coordinator about the space near the altar. One afternoon, while trying on her wedding dress at the boutique, Keisha overheard her mother on the phone with Marcus. Gloria quickly ended the call when she saw her daughter, looking suspiciously like someone keeping a secret. "Mom, what's going on?" Keisha asked, adjusting her veil. Gloria smiled mysteriously. "Just wedding details, baby. You focus on being beautiful." But Keisha noticed her mother's eyes were misty, as if she knew something wonderful was about to happen. As the wedding date grew closer, Marcus began spending more time with Dr. Roberts, a specialist in physical therapy whom he had never mentioned before. When Keisha drove past the medical center one day, she saw Marcus working with a team of people, but he quickly had the blinds drawn when he noticed her car. Even their friends seemed to be in on whatever was happening. Tanya, her maid of honor, kept grinning whenever the wedding rehearsal was mentioned. Michael, who was now close to Marcus, would change the subject whenever Keisha asked about Marcus's therapy sessions. 2 weeks before the wedding, Keisha found some strange equipment in Marcus's spare room: parallel bars, leg braces, and other medical devices she didn't recognize. When she asked about them, Marcus simply said they were part of a new therapy program. "But why now, with the wedding so close?" she asked, concerned about the timing. Marcus pulled her onto his lap, something he often did when he wanted to reassure her. "Because our wedding day needs to be perfect," he said, kissing her forehead. "And I promise you, it will be more special than you can imagine." The night before the wedding rehearsal, Marcus called Keisha. His voice was filled with emotion. "Tomorrow will change everything," he said softly. "I just want you to know that everything I've done, every secret I've kept, has been for us." Keisha felt tears in her eyes, though she wasn't sure why. "Marcus, you're scaring me a little. Are you sure everything's all right?" "More than all right," he replied. "Tomorrow, I'm going to show you and everyone else what love can really do. Just promise me one thing. When you arrive at the rehearsal, keep your heart open for miracles." That night, Keisha could barely sleep. She thought about their journey, from their first meeting at the community center to now, on the eve of their wedding rehearsal. She remembered all the obstacles they'd overcome, all the doubts they'd faced from others, and how their love had proven stronger than any challenge. In her heart, she knew Marcus was planning something extraordinary. She had seen the determination in his eyes during these past months, the same determination she'd fallen in love with. Whatever tomorrow would bring, she trusted him completely. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Keisha's last thoughts were of Marcus and his mysterious promise. Little did she know that in less than 24 hours, she would witness something that would not only change their lives forever, but would also prove to everyone that love could make the impossible possible. The wedding rehearsal was set for 2 p.m. the next day, and somewhere across town, Marcus was making his final preparations for a moment that would leave everyone in tears of joy and disbelief. The morning of the wedding rehearsal, Marcus was already awake at dawn. He sat in his wheelchair, looking at the specialized braces and equipment laid out on his bed. For the past year, he had been working in secret with Dr. Roberts and a team of specialists on an experimental therapy program that had cost him nearly all his savings. Dr. Roberts arrived at Marcus's house early that morning. "Are you ready for today?" the doctor asked, helping him with the specially designed leg braces. "Remember, we've practiced this hundreds of times, but this will be different. The emotional pressure will be intense." Marcus nodded, his face showing both determination and nervousness. "I've been ready for this moment since the day I met Keisha," he replied, beginning his morning stretches. Every movement was crucial today. Across town, completely unaware of what was about to happen, Keisha was having breakfast with her mother and bridesmaids. "I still don't understand why Marcus has been so secretive lately," she said, stirring her coffee absently. Gloria patted her daughter's hand, fighting back tears. "Baby, sometimes the best surprises come when we least expect them. Just trust in love today." Back at Marcus's house, a small team had gathered. Dr. Roberts was adjusting the innovative braces while 2 physical therapists went through the final checklist. These weren't ordinary braces. They were cutting-edge medical devices that had taken months to customize for Marcus. "Let's do one final practice," Dr. Roberts suggested. They helped Marcus position himself between the parallel bars that had been secretly installed in his spare room. With tremendous effort and the support of the braces, Marcus pulled himself up. The room held its breath as he took one step, then another. It wasn't perfect. His movements were stiff and required intense concentration, but he was walking. A year ago, this would have seemed impossible. "Remember," Dr. Roberts cautioned, "you'll only be able to stand and take a few steps. Don't push yourself too hard. This technology is still experimental." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "A few steps are all I need. I just want to stand beside her at the altar, even if it's just for a moment." Meanwhile, at the church, the wedding coordinator was working with Michael and some helpers to ensure everything was perfectly arranged. They had secretly installed support bars behind the altar flowers and made sure there was a clear, safe path for what was about to happen. As the morning progressed, Marcus's nervousness grew. This wasn't just about standing or taking a few steps. It was about showing Keisha and everyone else that love could inspire miracles. He thought about all the nights he'd spent practicing until his muscles screamed in pain, all the times he'd nearly given up but kept going because of her smile. "You know," he said to Dr. Roberts while they prepared to leave for the church, "when I first met Keisha, People thought she was settling for less because I was in a wheelchair. Today, I'm going to show them that love doesn't settle, it elevates. The doctor checked the braces one final time. Just remember everything we practiced. And Marcus, what you're doing today, it's more than just standing up. You're showing people that determination and love can change lives. As they loaded the specialized equipment into the van, Marcus received a text from Keisha. "Can't wait to see you at the rehearsal. I love you." He smiled at his phone, typing back, "Today will be unforgettable. I love you more." Looking at the church's address on his GPS, Marcus took a deep breath. In just a few hours, he would attempt something that many had said was impossible. The braces felt heavy against his legs, hidden under his pants, but his heart felt light. The time was now 11:30 a.m., and the wedding rehearsal was set for 2 p.m. As the van pulled away from his house, Marcus touched the small cross his grandmother had given him for strength. He had kept this secret for so long, endured countless hours of painful therapy, all for this one moment. Soon, very soon, he would give Keisha the surprise of her life. A moment that would show her and everyone else that love truly had the power to make people stand tall, in every sense of the word. The church buzzed with activity as guests arrived for the wedding rehearsal at 2 p.m. sharp. Keisha stood in the entrance hall, looking radiant in a simple white dress she'd chosen for the occasion. Her hands fidgeted nervously as she greeted family members and friends, her eyes constantly scanning the crowd for Marcus. "He's running a little late," Michael told her, checking his phone. "He said to start without him and he'll be here soon." Something in her brother's voice sounded different, almost excited, but Keisha was too nervous to question it. Inside the church, everything was perfectly arranged. Fresh flowers decorated the altar, and sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, creating colorful patterns on the floor. The wedding coordinator kept glancing at her watch and whispering into her headset. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus finally arrived. Instead of coming through the main entrance, he asked to be taken to a small room at the back of the church. Dr. Roberts and his team quickly followed him in, carrying several bags of equipment. "Is everything ready?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling slightly as the team helped him with the braces. "Yes," Dr. Roberts replied, making final adjustments. "Remember what we practiced. Take it slow, and if you feel any discomfort, stop immediately." Meanwhile, in the main church hall, the rehearsal had begun. The bridesmaids practiced their walk down the aisle, and the pastor explained the ceremony sequence. Keisha stood at the back, waiting for her turn to practice her entrance, wondering why Marcus hadn't joined them yet. "Don't worry," Gloria whispered to her daughter, squeezing her hand. "Everything is exactly as it should be." Suddenly, Michael approached the pastor and whispered something. The pastor nodded and addressed the gathering. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. Please remain in your seats. Marcus has prepared something special." Keisha's heart started racing. "Mom, what's going on?" Before Gloria could answer, the church doors closed and the lights dimmed slightly. Soft music began playing. "At Last" by Etta James, their special song. The side door opened and Marcus appeared in his wheelchair, looking handsome in a dark blue suit. He wheeled himself to the front of the church, positioning himself carefully near the altar. Dr. Roberts and two assistants stood discreetly nearby. "Keisha," Marcus called out, his voice strong despite his nervousness. "For the past year, I've been keeping a secret from you. Every extra therapy session, every mysterious appointment, every late night, it was all for this moment." The entire church fell silent as Marcus gripped the handles of his wheelchair. Dr. Roberts stepped forward, standing ready to assist. "They told me I would never stand again," Marcus continued, his voice thick with emotion. "But they didn't know the power of love. They didn't know about you, Keisha, and how you make me want to achieve the impossible." Slowly, with tremendous effort, Marcus began to push himself up from his wheelchair. The specialized braces whirred quietly under his pants as they supported his movement. Gasps filled the church as he gradually rose to his full height. Keisha's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God," she whispered, watching in disbelief as the man she loved, who had been wheelchair-bound for 15 years, stood before her. Marcus gripped the discreetly placed support bar, his legs trembling with effort but holding steady. "Tomorrow, when we say our vows," he said, his voice carrying through the silent church, "I wanted to stand beside you, even if just for a moment. to show you and everyone else that our love makes miracles possible." The church erupted in tears and soft exclamations. Big Mama was openly weeping, praising the Lord. Gloria held her daughter, who seemed frozen in place, watching the miraculous scene unfold. But Marcus wasn't finished. With careful, determined movements and Dr. Roberts close by, he took one shaky step forward, then another. Each step was a triumph of love over limitation, of determination over destiny. Keisha couldn't move, couldn't speak, could barely breathe as she watched the man she loved defy the impossible, one step at a time, all for her. The wedding rehearsal had become something far more profound, a testament to the power of love to lift people up, in every sense of the word. The church fell completely silent as Marcus took another careful step forward. Keisha stood frozen at the back of the church, tears streaming down her face as she watched her fiancé accomplish what doctors had said was impossible. The only sounds were the quiet whirring of the braces and Marcus's determined breaths. "Keisha," Marcus called out, his voice steady despite the immense effort of standing. "Come to me." As if awakening from a trance, Keisha began walking slowly down the aisle. Her legs felt weak, and her mother had to support her for the first few steps. The white dress she'd chosen for the rehearsal swept the floor as she moved, her eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Dr. Roberts stood close by, ready to assist if needed, but Marcus remained steady. The months of secret therapy, the countless hours of practice, the pain and frustration, all of it had led to this moment. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the effort, but his eyes shone with determination and love. When Keisha reached him, she stopped just a few feet away, afraid to touch him, afraid this might all be a dream. "How?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Marcus, how is this possible?" "With these special braces and a year of intensive therapy," he explained, gesturing to his legs. "Dr. Roberts and his team developed this technology. It's not permanent. I can only stand for short periods, and walking is still very difficult. But today, I wanted to show you that nothing is impossible when love is involved." Keisha reached out and touched his chest, feeling his heart beating strong and fast under her palm. Marcus was actually standing, looking down at her for the first time in their relationship. He was even taller than she had imagined. The guests watched in awe as Marcus slowly lifted his hand to cup Keisha's face. "Tomorrow," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "when we say our vows, I will stand beside you as your equal. Not because standing makes me more complete. You've always made me feel whole just as I am, but because I wanted to give you this gift, to show you and everyone here that our love can make miracles happen." Big Mama's voice rang out from the pews, "Praise the Lord, praise his holy name." Others joined in with amens and sniffles as they watched the scene unfold. Marcus took one more small step, bringing himself even closer to Keisha. Dr. Roberts moved forward slightly, but Marcus remained steady. "I may not be able to stand for our entire ceremony," he continued, "but for our vows, for our first kiss as husband and wife, I will stand tall beside you." Keisha finally found her voice. "Marcus Bennett," she said through her tears, "I fell in love with you sitting or standing. You've always stood tall in my heart." The church erupted in applause and cheers. Even the pastor was wiping tears from his eyes. Gloria and James held each other, watching their daughter experience a miracle born of love and determination. Slowly, carefully, Marcus and Dr. Roberts began the process of helping him back into his wheelchair. The effort of standing had drained him, but his face glowed with triumph and joy. As he settled back into his chair, Keisha knelt beside him and kissed him deeply, not caring about the mascara running down her cheeks. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly, holding his hands. Marcus smiled, catching his breath. "Because I wanted to see that look on your face. That moment when you realized that love can make the impossible possible." The wedding coordinator, who had been in on the secret all along, stepped forward to suggest they take a break before continuing with the rehearsal. Everyone needed time to compose themselves after witnessing such an incredible moment. As the guests mingled, sharing their amazement at what they'd just seen, Keisha stayed by Marcus's side, holding his hand and occasionally touching his face, as if making sure he was real. "Tomorrow," Marcus whispered to her, "when you walk down that aisle in your wedding dress, remember this moment. Remember that our love is strong enough to make miracles happen." Keisha leaned down to kiss him again, whispering against his lips, "My miracle already happened the day I met you." The rehearsal would continue, but nothing could overshadow the magic of what they had just witnessed. A moment when love proved stronger than any limitation, when determination defeated impossibility, and when a man showed the world that the power of love could literally help someone stand tall. The wedding day dawned bright and beautiful. The church filled with excited guests who had witnessed the miracle at the rehearsal, all eagerly waiting to see what would happen today. The story of Marcus standing had spread quickly through Atlanta's community, bringing even more people to celebrate this extraordinary couple. In the bridal room, Keisha sat in front of the mirror as her mother adjusted her veil. Her wedding dress was simple but elegant, with delicate lace details that Marcus had once traced with his fingers when they chose it. Gloria's hands trembled slightly as she pinned the veil in place. "You know," Gloria said softly, "when you first told me about Marcus, I was worried. I thought his disability would make life too hard for you. But yesterday, that man showed us all what real love can do." Meanwhile, in another room, Dr. Roberts and his team were helping Marcus prepare. The specialized braces were carefully secured under his tuxedo pants. They had practiced this moment countless times, but today felt different. Today was the real thing. "Remember," Dr. Roberts cautioned, "just like we discussed. Stand for the vows and the kiss, then back to the chair. Don't push yourself too hard." Marcus nodded, his eyes fixed on his reflection in the mirror. "Today isn't about standing," he said. "It's about showing the world that love has no limitations." The church bells rang, signaling it was time. Guests settled into their seats, many already dabbing at their eyes in anticipation. The pastor stood at the altar, smiling knowingly. He had seen many weddings, but none quite like this. The ceremony began traditionally. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle in their royal blue dresses, followed by the groomsmen. Marcus wheeled himself to his position near the altar, Dr. Roberts discreetly standing nearby. When the wedding march began playing, everyone stood. Keisha appeared at the church doors, her father beside her. She was radiant, her smile bright enough to light up the entire church. As she walked down the aisle, her eyes never left Marcus. When she reached the altar, James kissed his daughter's cheek and stepped back. The pastor began the ceremony, speaking about love's power to transform lives. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. "And now," the pastor announced, "Marcus and Keisha will exchange their vows." With help from Dr. Roberts and one of the groomsmen, Marcus slowly rose from his wheelchair. The church held its collective breath as he stood tall beside his bride. Keisha turned to face him, tears already streaming down her face. Marcus spoke first, his voice strong and clear despite the effort of standing. "Keisha Thompson, you saw me when others looked past me. You loved me completely, wheelchair and all. Yesterday I showed you a miracle, but the real miracle happened 2 years ago when you came into my life." Keisha's vows were equally moving. "Marcus Bennett, you've taught me that love has no boundaries, no limitations. Whether you're sitting or standing, you've always stood tall in my heart. I promise to love you, support you, and believe in our miracles for all the days of our lives." When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus, still standing, pulled Keisha close for their first kiss as a married couple. The church erupted in cheers and applause. Big Mama's voice rose above the crowd. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this blessing." After the kiss, Marcus settled back into his wheelchair, exhausted but triumphant. As they made their way down the aisle as husband and wife, rice and flower petals showered down on them. Their faces glowed with joy and love. At the reception, Marcus surprised everyone by rising once more for their first dance. Holding onto Keisha, supported by his braces, they swayed gently to "At Last" by Etta James, the same song that had played during his first steps at the rehearsal. Later that evening, as guests celebrated around them, Keisha leaned down to kiss her husband. "You've given me so many miracles," she whispered. Marcus pulled her onto his lap, something he had done countless times before. "The only miracle I need is you," he replied. "Everything else is just proof of what love can do when you believe." Their wedding day became a legend in Atlanta, not just for the miracle of a man standing after 15 years, but for showing the world that true love knows no boundaries. It was a testament to the power of love to lift people up, to make the impossible possible, and to prove that sometimes fairy tales do come true. The end.